Hi, everybody. We are officially in our first week of May and our fifth week of e-learning. I hope y'all are still doing okay. And if you need anything, make sure you reach out, send me a text, send me an email. Keep those assignments coming in. You guys have been doing a great job of keeping up, getting stuff turned in, and staying with me through all this craziness. So let's start by talking about what we're going to be looking at this week. Again, this is the first week of May. We are on Monday the 4th. May the 4th be with you, is our little intro for today. So today we're going to go ahead and we're going to prep the information that you need for your assignment that is due on Tuesday. But today again is May 4th. We're going to start today with an intro to quadratics. We're going to go through some practice problems so that you're set for your assignment on Tuesday. You're also going to have your second assignment for the week due on Thursday, and then your exit ticket on Friday. So we are back to our normal e-learning routine. Your exit ticket, remember, is an opportunity to make up points for the week. If you do great on the first two assignments, you don't need to worry about your exit ticket. If you have any questions on your grade, on your assignments, just make sure and reach out as the week goes on. So let's go ahead and get started. We are in algebra. Again, this is the week of May 4th, and what we're talking about this week is an intro to quadratics. If I were you, I would have out a piece of lined paper so that you can take down some of these very important notes. Everything that we go through today is going to be super important for your assignment. You're going to have some vocab work to do on your assignment and some problems. So it's important that you are comfortable with all of the terms and things that we're going through today because they're all going to be new. So today and for the rest of this year, actually, for the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about quadratic equations. Quadratic equations we have seen before. We've used them before in talking about our different types of polynomials and in our factoring. The first thing that we want to make note of is that all quadratics are written in standard form. So we're going to have that ax squared plus bx plus c. So another way to think about this, another way to remember this, is that our quadratics are typically going to be our trinomials. It's just important that we pay attention to the fact that it's a squared as our first term. Okay, so that's our first thing to note. Our second thing to note is that when we graph when we graph quadratics, I just gave away the answer, we are going to end up with a U-shaped curve called a parabola. Now, as we go into our work later this week, we're going to see what those look like as we actually go ahead and see what some of those graphs will reveal when we create tables. But for today, all we need to know is that quadratic equations create U-shaped curves called parabolas. So let's think about what that's actually going to look like. On our graph, when we graph parabolas, we're going to have two potential options. So we have two quadratic equations here at the top. One is a positive equation. We have a 1x squared. The other is a negative 1x squared. And what I've done here is I've gone and just sketched the graphs. I've shown you what they're going to look like when I go ahead and graph these examples. So the things that we might need to pay attention to here are two things. Number one, this first graph, we see that our A value, remembering that our A, and I'm going to go ahead and label these for us, our A is our first letter in our equation, our B represents that second number, and our C represents that third number. So if our A is positive, in this case our 1 is positive, our parabola is going to open up like a smiley face. So here we see that parabola kind of making that smiley face. If we'd put two little eyeballs here, again my weird little eyeballs, but we'd see that positive value creating a positive curve, which is going to open up. On the other hand, if we have a negative parabola, so if we have a negative 1x squared, our parabola is going to open down like a frown. So if you think about a frowny face, if we put our two little eyeballs up here, because our quadratic equation is negative, our parabola is going to open down. So that's the first thing we need to know. Number one, when we think about parabolas, the first important thing to note, we're going to go ahead and we'll write these here in green. So for number one, Does the parabola open up or down? So that's the first question we want to ask ourselves when we're thinking about these quadratic equations. The second question we want to ask ourselves, question number 2. Oh, let's keep it green so we are staying consistent for you. Number 2, what is the axis of symmetry? Okay, an axis of symmetry is just a vertical line that cuts our parabola in half. Okay, so as we see on these first couple rough sketches that I have up here, we have our axis of symmetry that I have represented by this pink line. All it does is it cuts our parabola from top to bottom, from north to south, from along the y-axis, so that we have 2 equal halves. Now, obviously, my sketches aren't perfect, but our axis of symmetry, if you think about our faces being symmetrical, symmetry meaning same on each side, okay? We can calculate and find that axis of symmetry using this equation here. This is going to become really important, so I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to put a star by it so that we recognize its importance. To calculate our axis of symmetry and to answer this question, we're going to be using this equation, x equals negative b over 2a. And we're going to go through some examples here in just a second. The last question that we need to answer for ourselves, question number 3. Let's make sure I'm still on the green here. Question number 3, not 4. What is the vertex? What is the vertex of our parabola? First of all, what is a vertex? On a parabola, the vertex is the turning point of the parabola. So if I look at my quick little sketches up here, my vertices are just those little important points where the parabola goes, where our parabola goes from moving down to moving up. So my vertex here is this blue dot. My vertex on this other one is also my blue dot. Okay, it's the point where we go from down to up or up to down. The 2 things we need to know about vertices is that if we have a low point, if our vertex is the lowest point on our graph, we call it a minimum. And if it's the highest point, we call it a maximum. So in this graph here, this one is going to be our minimum because it's the lowest point on our graph. All the other points are higher. And on this graph, we are going to have a maximum as our vertex because all the other points are below it. So we know it's the highest point on our curve. So we have all of our important pieces of information that we're going to use. Those vocab words are really important. If you need to pause and get them written down for yourself, this is a great time to do that because we're going to go ahead and run through one example here together today so that we can start to get an idea of how we apply these vocab terms to our math and actually to evaluating these quadratics. So the first thing that we need to be aware of, the first thing that we need to think about is what is our axis of symmetry? And we know that's the opposite of b over 2a. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get my pen ready here. I know that in my equation, my b is 8. So my opposite of b is going to be negative 8 over 2 times a. I know 2 just stays the same, and my a value is a 1. So negative 8 divided by 2 is going to leave me with a negative 4. My axis of symmetry, because it's a line that goes vertically, it is always going to be an x equals line. So my axis of symmetry is x equals negative 4. Now to find my vertex is just a point. My point is always going to be x comma y. So I know one of my points here. I already know what my x value is. I just found it. So my x value is going to be a negative 4. So I can already go ahead and put that in there. And now I just need to calculate what is my y going to be on my vertex. So what I need to do is I need to plug my x into my original equation and solve from there. So I have a -4, remembering to use those parentheses, -4 squared plus, again, just following my equation, plus 8 times -4 plus 15. So once I go ahead and I plug this all in, I can use my calculator or I can just use my mental math. -4 squared is going to give us 16. 8 times -4 is 32, so I'm going to end up with 16 plus a -32, which is a -16 plus 15 is going to give me a -1. And again, why does that work? Well, our equation says y equals, so I know if my x is -4, my y has to equal this -1. So if I go ahead and I do a really quick sketch of this graph, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to create my parabola here. Okay, so I'm just going to draw that little U shape. I know my vertex here is at -4, -1, and I know that my axis of symmetry, so this dotted line that cuts my parabola in half, is at the point and all the points where x equals -4. So that's the premise of our assignment for this week. When I say do a sketch, I don't need you to do anything fancy. I'm just looking for you to tell me, number one, does the graph go up or down? And in this case, I know that it is curving up because I have a positive number 1. I know that I'm going to be able to find my axis of symmetry, and then I can do that vertex and sketch. So don't forget to pay attention to, does it open up or does it open down? All right, your assignment that is due on Tuesday, I would go ahead and get a start on this today, is to complete numbers 1 through 8. We have 2 more problems this week than normal, but it is the first 5 are very, very quick. You're just filling in some blanks with the vocab words and the information that we talked about at the beginning today. When you are finished with these answers, go ahead and shoot me a text or an email. If I were you today, I would feel really, really comfortable getting a good start on these first 5 problems because these are just filling in the blanks with the vocab words. Tomorrow on Zoom and on YouTube, we will go through the couple more practice problems here so that you can make sure you feel comfortable doing 6, 7, and 8. If you're good to go, you're welcome to get started on those, but again, it's not due till Tuesday. I am looking forward to seeing all of you on Zoom tomorrow and to answering any questions that you have as we go. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, everybody.